How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the College Sports Show here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. She is Abby Schnable. I am Noah Hiles. Abby, we had a week off, but we're back at it here with some spring sports topics here, some transfer portal, some spring game, maybe some other stuff. But first off, how are you?
You know, the weather is great. I'm told not to expect this often because this is like a string of very sunny days, and apparently that's unexpected. So I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Like you said, weather's been great, and some interesting stuff going on in the world of Pitt, which is what we'll be delving into here. And we'll start off by talking about Pitt basketball's newest player, Zack Austin, comes to the Panthers from High Point, where last year he was honorable mention honors on the All Big South team. He was the Big South Freshman of the year prior, averaged just over 14 points a game. A tall, athletic wing, 6'7", 200-ish pounds, and had some major interest from some big programs, a couple other ACC schools, other schools that from power conferences like Alabama, Arkansas, West Virginia, Georgetown also in on him. Abby, just having the chance to look everything over, where do you think Zack Austin fits on this roster, and how big of a pickup is this for Pitt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure where he fits yet, just because, I think we talked 2 weeks ago about what does Pitt need? Probably a veteran guard to play off the bench and then some height. And I think this adds to the height, but it messes with how I kind of am imagining the starting five for next year because it's not a clear pick anymore, in my opinion, on who's kind of playing that wing spot. I think it's a good add. I really do. Like you said, he was getting a lot of interest elsewhere. 14 points, no matter where you're playing, that's impressive. 5.4 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and then 2.1 blocks. That's a solid stat line right there. And he's gonna jump in on any team and do well. And I think, with losing a lot of veterans, this is especially a good add for Pitt because he adds in not only statistically, but also just having more vets is almost never going to hurt you. So I don't know. I could see him squeezing his way into a starter spot. It kind of just depends on how everything else kind of lays right now. But I really do. I like this add a lot for Capel's team.
Yeah, I think at the very worst, it's a great depth move. Where I think it takes some pressure off Blake Hinson.
Mm-hmm.
Blake's clearly going to be the best player on this Pitt team, barring something crazy that happens in the transfer portal, which is always a possibility. But as it stands right now, Blake's going to be the key piece for Pitt next year. And the thing that's best in his game is scoring the basketball. And what they did is they found a guy with similar measurements to Hinson, who could probably just pick up the slack on the defensive end. I think a huge need for Pitt this offseason was to go out and find a guy who could guard a player like a Kyle Filipowski, who's coming back, or a tall wing who can score from the outside. And I don't even know if I'd call Filipowski a wing, but he can play like a wing. Someone who could shoot from the outside, someone who's athletic, but someone who also has significant size. And I felt like this year when they would match Blake up against someone like that, it was a waste of time because you're burning his energy on the defensive end when you really need him for offense more than anything else. And if you were to put Federico or a Diaz-Graham twin on them, they were just overmatched. I mean, Fetty wouldn't necessarily be overmatched, but you need someone down low. Now you have this type of player. I think a best case scenario, a player comp that we saw last year, I think this could be like a Leaky Black from North Carolina, where he's not going to be a superstar, but he's going to be a very reliable player and nail down a role. And I think it's going to be the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Although he is shooting in his career over 30% from three, and the block shots, like you pointed out, are great. And if he is, a 10-plus point scorer, that's all good stuff. But Pitt's going to have that from other people. Mm-hmm. What they need is defense and just a havoc causer. And I think that guy can be this. Moving forward now, what do they need next? Is it a veteran guard or is it another big? What are you looking for? And is there a player that comes to mind, Abby, when you look at the billions of names, it seems, in the transfer portal? who's a guy that you think would be a realistic, landing for Pitt?
Well, I wanted to go back to Austin just for a second,
Yeah.
just because, like you said, the intangibles, and I think that's going to be huge for him, especially coming from a mid-major program. Because you never really, really, really know how the mid-major to high major jump is going to take. Some programs or some people take to it really well, some don't. But I feel like a lot of these mid-major players transferring onto a Power 5, Power 6 team are able to kind of make a role for themselves because they are sometimes a little bit more willing to jump on the floor or fight for things. And so, I could really see him being kind of what we think of in a glue guy in a way. Doing all the little things, having moments here and there. And so I just wanted to say that because I wrote it and I wanted to make that note. But I still think a veteran guard would be good. Basketball is becoming more and more positionless, and so do you have Blake Hinson and now Zack Austin who can kind of help play the smaller ball? Absolutely, but you want them to be able to play a little bit more big, and you still just have those two freshmen. Right, one's a red shirt, one's a
Fetty's going to be a junior, and then the Diaz-Graham twins will be sophomores.
I'm talking about guards.
The guards. There will be Dior Johnson will be a redshirt freshman. Then you have two true freshmen coming in. With Jalen Lowe and Carlton Carrington.
So you've got those three freshmen. If I'm capable, I still want a vet. I still want a vet who can come in when these guys are having off days because they haven't figured out how to work through off days yet. Like, I want someone who's able to teach them as well. But again, that's a hard role to kind of pitch. And so I don't know. There's not been anyone in that specific role that's really popped out to me. Although my friend did make the joke that Jordan Davis from Wisconsin's in the transfer portal and he could fill that. And I was like, but Jordan's going to want a starter spot. And that's not necessarily what I think Pitt needs.
Well, I think that Pitt could use a starter at the 2. I don't think that they need to start. And I don't think it's wise to start your entire backcourt as freshmen.
That's
while
true.
Dior Johnson does have an experience, he knows the offense. I mean, if your entire starting backcourt enters this season with 0 games of college basketball under their belt, that means every guy you got the ball taken up the floor, it's going to be their first time playing at Cameron Indoor or playing at the Dean Dome or playing, in the Carrier Dome and all those crazy atmospheres. And the ACC, it had a down year this year, whatever. It's still a really good conference. And there's a lot of good coaches who are excellent at picking apart these freshmen. And we've seen since the transfer portal became a big staple of this sport that the older teams do better.
Yes.
And while, sure, there you can point to a couple of freshmen here or there that are making plays, but it's the teams that are winning their conference tournaments, the teams that are going on deep runs, have guys who have been around for a little bit. And so I do think it's important that you land a quality starting guard. Now, that doesn't need to be the point guard. I think that between Lowe or Johnson, you have a guy who could probably start on almost every team in the ACC at the 1 there. But I think the 2 spot, replacing a Greg Elliott and finding someone similar to him, or maybe even an upgrade, would be enormous for this team. And there's so many guys in the portal right now who are connected to Pitt that I think would be perfect fits. And just to name some names that people are familiar with, Joe Girard is the first visit that Pitt made.
Top of my list,
yes,
too.
and we all know about him. He's played for Syracuse. He's played against Pitt like 8 or 9 times in his career. Obviously that's the perfect one. That should be the golden standard. But there are 2 other guys that they've contacted recently. L. Ellis from Louisville, quite literally the one good player from that team last year. It would be interesting with him just because he'd be coming to a team where it's like, hey, you don't get to shoot 30 times a game anymore. And I don't know how many times he actually shot 30 times a game, but you're playing on a team that's actually going to be able to win basketball games. You don't have to do everything. But I mean, L. Ellis is, I think, one of the more underrated players in the ACC. And then another guy who really impressed me, and you had a chance to see him play in person too, is Matthew Cleveland from Florida State. He's in the transfer portal, and I think he brings a little bit of a different element with his size where he could be more of like a Jamarius Burton type guy. And between those 3, I think, if they're able to get any one of those guys who have played quality time in the ACC, I mean, Cleveland, I'm pretty sure, has been on a tournament team. Girard playing at Syracuse for 4 years. He's been a part of a lot of big basketball games. And Al Ellis, I mean, he didn't do much at Louisville, but I mean, he led a one-man charge essentially against the conference for the last couple of years. And another guy that they're hosting on a visit this weekend is Ishmael Leggett from Rhode Island, someone who averaged 16 points a game. Just someone like that, I think, that it's not – I don't even know if a guy like Greg Elliott, who was a sixth man at a Big East school, I don't know if you could justify that as being like an automatic starter. But I think that Pitt has enough clout now where they should be able to get at least one guy who will come in and be a top 2-3 player on this team, which isn't as easy as it was to do last year.
And I don't, you named all ACC guys and a handful of, or you talked about Power 5. I don't necessarily think this has to be a Power 5
I agree.
player coming in. Like what I love, I mean, there's nuances with the transfer portal. Ask me about my 10-page document about the transfer portal that's in my Google Drive right now. But what I love is that these mid-major players are getting moments to shine that they necessarily wouldn't have gotten in this day and age, or before this day and age. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see whoever. I mean, Joe Girard was at the top of my list as well. And, I'm just excited to see what he does. And then I think the other area, obviously, I still think he needs a little bit more height. I would like Capel to have a little bit more height if I'm just feeling a little bit more comfortable. I feel more comfortable with Austin coming in, but, depth doesn't hurt per se, and he still has 4 spots.
I would say rather than height, because I mean they have 3 7-footers. I need someone who's not 200 pounds and 7 feet tall.
Yes,
I would rather take this. Yes, I think size is the better word to use there, because if they were to get like and they might have that with Will Jeffress coming back, someone we didn't get to see play this year because of injury. But again, he's more of a Blake Hinson, a Zack Austin type of wing. Where if you can go get like a 6'9", just a big old boy down low, a 6'9", maybe like a John Hughley, but someone who, is going to be around for the whole year, it would be more receptive to a bench role. I think that would be something worth their while, where they only need to go get one starter quality player out of the transfer portal. I think the other acquisitions they make, and they can come from JUCO, they could still get a kid out of high school. Or, it could come from the portal too. They don't need to be guys who, wow, we got our starters here. Because I think that Fetty, Hinson, and Johnson are locks to be starters. And between Austin and Lowe and Barnes and Carrington and the twins, you can fill those cracks in there. You have enough. With just one more, you're solid. And now you have a 4 or 5 man bench and you're looking really good. And then everything else after that is just depth additions. So that's what I like. And then one more note on Girard and why he's my personal favorite for this. On top of, like I said, like everything that we pointed out, his game translates well with young guards. I mean, we saw how he played with Judah Mintz this past year. Pair him with another 4-star point guard. I mean, there's going to be 3 of them. Essentially, or 2 of them. I don't know if Carrington's necessarily point guard, but I digress. Abby, let's shift over to football now. This weekend, we have the Blue-Gold game on the North Shore. It'll be first time for both of us. As I started here in August, you started, when was it?
January.
January.
End of January.
Early February, same time. It was dark and there was snow, and you got a job here, and It's been great ever since. But overall, just based off of what you've seen and everything, what do you think is the most intriguing thing to look out for in this spring game for Pitt? If you're a Pitt fan, you're walking through the gates at Acrisure with your Pitt ball cap on and your blue or your gold shirt, what are you most looking forward to on Saturday?
Well, so I think what those Pitt fans are going to be most excited for is the quarterback battle. Well, not battle anymore per se, because Jurkovic. I never pronounce his name right.
It's okay.
Obviously, he's already earned the starter position. So I want to see him as a fan. I want to see him, what he does, get my eyes on him. But then I think it'll be interesting to see who's the starting quarterback on the other team, because you do have Nate Yarnell, Christian
Veyer.
Yeah, I would not have gotten that one.
Yeah, no one does.
And so I think it'll be interesting to see who they start in that one and how interchangeably those two guys are going in, because I think that's going to give a good tell for who's the backup quarterback. And I think most fans, that's immediately what you go to, who's going to lead this team quarterback wise. But what I'm most looking forward to is seeing the defense in action, because you lost a lot of big guys in Kalijah Cansey, Dennis Hallett. I'm not even going to try some of these names, but whatever. And that's some and more. So that's some big star power. And I'm not saying everything needs to be smoothed out right now. Obviously, it's a spring game where your best guys aren't all going to be put together. But I'm excited to see how fluidly they do run right now. And then who has kind of really, really, really stepped out as a leader of the defense? Like, is it the returning starter, Shane Simon and Bangley Kamara? Is it a guy like Dayon Hayes? There we go. I don't know why I struggled with that one for some reason. I think my eyes are going to be on the defense, because, with everything we've heard that's been written about, that's been talked about, that we've seen, it's very clear that they feel really confident about their quarterback room, which is great. That's what you want. I'm not saying they haven't said that they're confident in their defense. I just think that there's a lot more nuances within the defense right now. And that's what I'm going to be excited to see, is how well do they run when they don't have all their best guys together? How do these new guys do? And so for me, that's what I'm excited for. And that's why I'm also kind of excited that Narduzzi isn't letting the seniors pick and choose the teams, because I think it is going to be interesting to see who he matches up with who and how they all run together, and just the balance in general. So I just ranted a little bit.
No, I think that obviously I agree with a lot of what you had to say. I think the thing that I'm looking for is, I'll say it like this. I don't have as much interest in when the football is being ran, regardless of who it's being ran by. I think that Pitt is going to be able to run the football. And just this offense, I really like its offensive line. I'm very optimistic that this committee that they have in the backfield, I think Hammond Jr. is going to be the best one, but I think Flemister is going to have a big role this year. Derek Davis is going to look good. We've heard good things about TJ Harbison, the freshman, the early enrollee guy. And Daniel Carter as well, who's coming back for a sixth year. I mean, they have a great stable of backs back there. But to me, the thing that I'm most interested in Saturday afternoon is going to be when the football is in the air, for a multitude of reasons. One, I want to see, like everyone else, what these quarterbacks are made of. I've seen them throw routes on air. They look like they can really complete passes when no one's guarding their receivers. However, while I think that Pitt's defense is going to be really good next year, arguably has a chance to be better than it was this past season, which is really saying something, considering they have a first-round NFL draft pick up front, the conference's best player of the year last year, and a couple of guys who got some major All-ACC accolades as well. I just think it's going to be really talented across the board, but where it is best is in the secondary. There are two shutdown corners on this defense, and MJ Devonshire and Marquez Williams, who have made a lot of plays from what I've heard in spring ball. And there are four safeties who are all battling for those two starting spots right now. And included in that group is a guy like Donovan McMillan, who came from Peters Township to Florida and then transferred back here. He's battling with guys like PJ O'Brien, who's been just on the cusp of starting in recent years, but he just had some vets in front of him who were all ACC and all American quality players who will be playing in the NFL next year. There's a guy like Javon McIntyre, who played a little at the end of last season, and he had an interception against Miami. He had an interception in the Sun Bowl. What can he do to build upon this? There's a guy like Stephon Hall, who was a big-time recruit out of Central Valley High School in Beaver County in this area. And we've seen him on special teams, but is this the year where he inserts it? That safety battle is something I'm interested in. How this receiver group, who claims to be so much more confident in the playbook, how do they match up against probably the best corner duo they're going to see this season at that stadium? How are they going to match up? And how do the quarterbacks fare against all of this? I'm really excited to see it. I'm also excited to see how the running backs get involved in the passing game. That's something I feel like Pitt really dropped the ball on last year with Izzy, where they could have probably got him the ball a lot more through the air in space. And and they didn't. And I think that we're going to see that a lot more this year. Running backs on Pitt's team have actually told me that. On the record, that's not like an exclusive scoop or anything. But yeah, so I wouldn't be mad if it's just a 7-on-7. I know fans would probably be, you want to see the big hits, but I really want to see how the routes go. How does Dracovic and how do these receivers, how do they do against these cornerbacks? And how do the safeties look? How are they able to help make things more difficult on the offense, or maybe give the offense a break? Because this secondary, in my opinion, has a chance to be one of the best in the country if it plays up to its potential. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
What'll be super interesting to see is if those cornerbacks, Williams and Devonshire, are on the same or opposite teams. Because one, I would love to see how they're doing against a Dracovic-led offense. Because like you said, it's nice having two. Mm-hmm. And so...
and you have AJ Woods too, who's a 3-year starter as well. They've had the same three cornerbacks for the last 3+ seasons now.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're gonna be in a pretty good spot at that position.
And so it'll be interesting to see how the offense does against the one that has the two whoever of the three. Just because with wanting to split it evenly down the middle, it'll just be interesting to see how Narduzzi and his staff does that, because I think they're gonna be little things you're really able to extrapolate just from those matchups alone.
Yeah, and I think that and to just go further on the passing, I think if Pitt could have thrown the ball a little bit better last year, it would have been a 10 or 11 win team rather than a 9-win team. It probably would have played in a bowl better than the Sun Bowl. It might have even played in the ACC title game again. But when opponents knew Pitt had to throw the football, it couldn't complete a lot of passes. And if it's able to do that this year, it has a chance to be a really good football team, I think, because it's going to be able to run, and I think it's going to have a really good defense. Yeah. So, yeah, the passing stuff, as someone who's been begging the Pitt coaching staff, 5 more minutes. Just let me stay here and watch 7-on-7 or something. And they say, get the heck out of here. That's definitely something I have my eye on. And I think that's what everyone should really be intrigued to watch. Abby, do you have any final thoughts as we wrap up this show?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just really excited. Seeing all these different moves being made in the offseason for any of the sports has just been keeping us on our toes, that's for sure. And so it'll be exciting to see on Saturday, and even more exciting to see once the season gets going.
Absolutely. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and keep tuning in. We'll have more content for you on all Pittsburgh sports on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. Take care.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.